Okay, so we're back. At the end of the last lecture, we were discussing the Abington Township two-part test, and then another case called Waltz versus Commissioner, in which the court decided the case based on a new test called excessive entanglement. Does that mean that the court is getting rid of the two-prong test announced in Abington and substituting simply a calculus of whether a government is excessively entangled with religion? Well, the answer comes to us in a case that comes up later called Lemon versus Kurtzman. In Lemon versus Kurtzman, the court reviewed the policies of two states, Rhode Island and Pennsylvania. In Rhode Island, the policy was exclusively one of using state funds to supplement the salaries of teachers teaching in parochial religious schools, private schools. In Pennsylvania, the policy involved a bit more. It included supplements for teachers' salaries at religious schools, but also direct aid to schools for the purchasing of textbooks and supplemental materials. So the court is asked to answer the question whether the reimbursing of non-public schools for teachers and salaries and secular educational materials violates the Establishment Clause, and the court, by an 8-0 vote, says yes. Chief Justice Burger writes the majority opinion, and the keys there are he creates a three-prong test. He merges Abington Township and Waltz, creates this three-part test that requires that government have a secular legislative purpose, in other words, neutral, that the primary effect of the policy neither advances nor inhibits religion, and that the policy does not excessively entangle government with religion in the implementation of the policy. So how does it turn out in Lemon? Well, first let's look at the Rhode Island program. It only supplemented teachers' salaries in parochial schools, and the court says that this in itself excessively entangles government with religion, and it strikes down the program. Let me read to you just briefly. In our view, this is from the majority opinion, in our view, the record shows these dangers of entanglement are present to a substantial degree. The Rhode Island Roman Catholic elementary schools are under the general supervision of the Bishop of Providence and his appointed representative, the diocesan superintendent of schools. In most cases, each individual parish, however, assumes the ultimate financial responsibility for the school, with the parish priest authorizing the allocation of parish funds. And then skipping over. We do not assume, however, that parochial school teachers will be unsuccessful in their attempts to segregate their religious beliefs from their secular educational responsibilities. But the potential for impermissible fostering of religion is present. The Rhode Island legislature has not and could not provide state aid on the basis of a mere assumption that secular teachers under religious discipline can avoid conflicts. The state must be certain, given the religion clauses, that subsidizing teachers do not inculcate religion. That subsidized teachers do not inculcate religion. Indeed, the state here has undertaken to do so. To ensure that no trespass occurs, the state has therefore carefully conditioned its aid with pervasive restrictions. An eligible recipient must teach only those courses that are offered in the public schools and use only those texts and materials that are found in the public schools. In addition, the teacher must not engage in teaching any course in religion, and this in itself entangles government with religion by placing upon religion requirements that would or limitations that would require government to verify. So the excessive entanglement there has to do with government supervising whether a teacher in a religious school is or is not teaching religion. The Pennsylvania program was even more difficult. Not only did it supplement salaries, but it provided direct funds for textbooks and supplemental materials. And the court says that this here also involves excessive entanglement But here it's even worse, because in Pennsylvania, the state required that religious schools keep separate books, separate financial accounts of the secular expenses of the use of governmental funds, right, tax money given to them by the state, and to ensure that those monies were only spent for secular purposes, and the state could audit those books. That was like the state. It was the state acting as the overseer for the religious institution to ensure that it had used tax money only for religious purposes. Part of the problem was that the funds were given directly to the schools to purchase the textbooks. The state did not purchase them for them. So the aftermath of this was interesting. On the same day Lemons decided, the court announces its decision in Tilton versus Richardson, and this case has to do with religious or financial aid to religious colleges. The court says that's okay. I'd like you to go into the text and find out why the court says that that is okay. What's the difference between a primary and secondary parochial private school and a private university or college? Secondly, I'd like you to think about whether you can reconcile cases like Lemon and DeCenzo, that was the companion case, the Rhode Island case, companion to Lemon. Can you reconcile that with Yoder? Okay, so in Lemon, the court is saying that providing aid to religious schools, direct aid, excessively entangles government with religion, even though government has a secular legislative purpose in ensuring that children educated at private schools receive a good education. On the other hand, in Yoder, the court says that the state does not have a secular legislative purpose or a compelling purpose to demand that children of this particular sect, members of this particular sect, receive an education. It's very confusing. In one situation, the Yoder case involving free exercise, education is not compelling enough, but in Lemon and DeCenzo, it may be compelling, but it involves the provision of services that excessively entangle. Also, has the court applied the Lemon test consistently? We'd have to look at other cases. Like Tilton may give us some pause there. In the aftermath of Lemon, we also see a number of cases coming up in which the court sort of uses Lemon to achieve the result it wants. For example, giving tax money to schools to repair buildings violates Lemon. Why? Well, it doesn't violate excessive entanglement, but remember, we've got two other prongs. The court says that religious instruction might occur in those buildings, and so government is actually enhancing religion, or it's advancing it. It's violating the second prong. In Pittinger, the court says textbooks are okay, but not instructional material and equipment. So textbooks are okay, but if you provide other kind of instructional material, like religious instructional material, or even you provide a copy machine, that machine might be used to copy religious materials that would be used to indoctrinate students. That's not okay. In Mueller, the court says that tax deductions for parents for the purchase of books and paying tuition and the cost of transportation is okay, primarily because that aid is not going to religion, it's going to the parents of the children who are enrolling their children in those private schools. And then in a case called Zobrist, the court says that paying for a sign language interpreter to accompany a deaf child to a private school is okay. Lamb's Chapel was a case involving, it's sort of at the intersection between free exercise and religious establishment. It involved a church that wanted to use a a school building on Sunday to hold its services. So Lamb's Chapel wanted to meet at the school after hours, and the school district had a policy of allowing any group to use the school facilities after hours, so long as as they registered with the school and that sort of thing. And they hadn't turned down any organization, but they turned down Lamb's Chapel. And the court says that it decides this case basically by saying that the school district can't pick and choose once it's opened its doors to any particular group. It can't then exclude a group because of its religious beliefs. But Scalia harshly criticizes the Lemon test, and he says, like some ghoul in a late-night horror movie that repeatedly sits up in its grave and shuffles abroad, after being repeatedly killed and buried, Lemon stalks our Establishment Clause jurisprudence once again, frightening the little children and the school attorneys. He doesn't like the decision by the court in Lamb's Chapel. He doesn't like the use of Lemon. He thinks that it places too much of a burden on the state and frightens people and unnecessarily limiting the involvement of the state with religion. The final case, Curious Joel Village versus Grummet. In this case, the court says that that a school district, a private school district, can't set up a school exclusively for children, special needs children, by the way, whose parents are members of a particular religious sect. In this case, Hasidic Jewish children. They can't set up a separate school for them so that they can, provide a context in which they can, eat kosher and various other sorts of things. Court says that excessively entangles government with religion. Oh, and yes, of course, there's Zellman versus Simmons-Harris, which is also excerpted in our text. This case involved school vouchers. Now, Ohio is providing school vouchers to pay for wherever parents wanted to send their children, either just simply a secular private school or a religious private school, parochial school. And the question was, does this school vouchers program offend the Establishment Clause? The court says, very closely divided court, it doesn't. Where a government aid program is neutral with respect to religion and provides assistance directly to a broad class of citizens who then direct their aid to religious schools, the program is not readily subject to challenge under the Establishment Clause. So how is this neutral? Well, the court says that Ohio was not discriminating. In fact, it wouldn't have been neutral. It would have violated neutrality if it had said, we will only give vouchers to reimburse the costs of educating students at secular private schools. That would have been non-neutral. That would have been offensive to religion. It would have inhibited religion. In the same way that if Ohio had said, we're only going to provide vouchers to parents of children who attend religious private schools, that would have been offensive. Here, the government didn't discriminate, and so the court upholds the voucher program. All right. Thank you for your time.